Ladies, gentlemen, and adventurers of all ages, today marks a pretty major day for Baldurs Gate 3 as we have the release of probably the largest update since the release of the game, the final major patch of the game, Patch 8. And the big main feature of this, for anyone who hasn't been following the news, is 12 brand new subclasses coming to the game. Specifically, this is one new subclass for each class, inspired by the original Dungeons & Dragons source material, just as most of the game is, and then given that bit of extra Larian flair to make it fit into Baldurs Gate 3 and the systems that we have in place in this game. So today we're going to go over all of the information that you need to know about each subclass, talk about how they work, what you unlock that is specific to them, and then comparing them to the other subclass options in the game too, especially among their overarching class, and then ranking all of the new ones against each other, just a way to sort of talk about why some of them are going to absolutely break the game, while others are just going to be more pleasant additions. And we'll also be talking a little bit about multi-classing too, just so you have a concept of how well they mix with each other. Every one of these will be capable of beating the game on any difficulty, but this is just how to represent the way that I view each new subclass and its ability to mix into the game as is, with a little bit of consideration for uniqueness and cool factor as well. That said, in last place, I've got the Way of the Drunken Master Monk, which is really disappointing because conceptually I've always loved the idea of the drunken kung fu master archetype of a character, and it is such a fun idea for a playstyle in an RPG, at least in concept, and despite me ranking it so far back, I think it's one that's definitely worth messing around with if you like the concept. But the main issue that it has is it doesn't really do anything particularly well in itself. The main thing is that it gets as a subclass are Intoxicating Strike, which spends key points and an action to hit an enemy and gives you a chance of making that enemy drunk on hit. If you successfully apply that effect, the enemy will have disadvantage on dexterity and charisma checks until the effect wears off, which on its own isn't all that impressive, but then at level 7 you get Life of the Party. This activates every time that you hit with Intoxicating Strike, giving you a stacking +1 to both your AC and attack rolls against drunk targets, and this has no limit to the stacks, which sounds like it should be broken, but you lose all of your stacks if anyone tries to attack you, whether they hit or not, and when combat drops off as well, you also lose your stacks, so you spend your key points to hit with Intoxicating Strike to maybe make enemies drunk, and slowly stack up these minor buffs every time that you do. But the problem is, it's super easy to lose all the stacks that you've gotten. It takes way too many key points spent to just get going in general, it's luck dependent whether you'll even get enemies drunk to have the effect work properly, and then even the actual gains from it are relatively small for the amount of effort and difficulty it takes. Not to mention that later unlocks like Sobering Retaliation at level 9 actively removes the drunk status from an enemy when you hit them to do some bonus psychic damage, and doing that also just completely removes all of your stacks of Life of the Party. It is a cool subclass, but it just doesn't sort of do anything better than the other monk subclasses from a functional standpoint, and on the note of multi-classing, there's no real benefit to multi-classing with this over any other monk subclass, especially as the best parts of Drunken Master all unlock at level 7 onwards, and that's still not saying a whole lot. Next up in the 11th place slot, I have the Arcane Archer Fighter subclass, and this is mostly thinking in comparison to the already existing fighter subclasses that we have, because if you are comparing it to other classes, Arcane Archer is pretty strong, but as a fighter subclass specifically, it does have limitations. So for how this works then, the main feature is that you get access to magical arrow effects that you can use a few times per rest. These are pretty similar to battle tactics from Battlemaster in concept, but applied to archery instead exclusively. There's one that can straight up banish enemies while also doing damage, which is honestly a really solid bit of utility, especially with the amount of arrow charges you get at higher levels. There's one that gives guaranteed hits and a chance of applying fairy fire to enemies too. There's one that pierces all enemies in a line. There's one that can blind enemies, which is also a really good debuff to apply to them. There's a lot of options and variety here to let you get creative with the effects, and the main limiting factor of this subclass is the amount of archery charges you have per rest. So most of the time you'll be plinking regular arrows and then just using these sometimes. Overall, I would say that Arcane Archer has very high utility compared to a lot of the fighter subclasses, but just less overall damage in comparison to something like Battlemaster, especially when you consider that Battlemaster can also use ranged weapons just fine. As for multiclassing, this one isn't great really. Obviously, it's good because it's a fighter in the first place, but the Arcane Archery options scale off of your intelligence, and unless you're trying to run like a wizard with a bow, it's just a fairly limiting choice of a multiclass, especially when compared with the other fighter options. Moving on in 10th place, I've got the the Swashbuckler Rogue. As the name implies, you're a goddamn pirate. Do what you want because a pirate is free, but as a subclass, it is pretty middling. Despite an awesome concept at heart, of course. You get fancy footwork at level 3, which lets you attack and then run away from enemies without letting them use attacks of opportunity, letting you have a proper hit and run playstyle. You get rakish audacity, which gives you bonus initiative, but far more importantly makes it so you can get sneak attacks on enemies without needing to have advantage first. This lets you play a lot more solo as a rogue without relying on the positioning of your party members, and the whole idea of this is basically walk in, get a sneak attack, walk out without provoking an opportunity attack, and then continue that loop on a turn-to-turn basis. At level 4, you get Dirty Tricks as a main class mechanic, giving you 3 options of bonus actions you can use each turn. The first one is a straight-up full bonus melee attack that also has a chance to disarm enemies, and this works off of your strength or dexterity, whichever is highest. Then you've got Sand Toss, straight up pocket sand that you throw in your enemy's eyes to try and blind them, which can be extremely useful because blind is a really strong status. And then just the ability to use Vicious Mockery as a bonus action cantrip, which is mostly just useful to have a ranged attack option that only costs a bonus action. This subclass is more about freedom than anything else, as you can accomplish higher overall damage with the other rogue subclasses, but they require more setup to do so, more specifically trying and more effort to make it happen. That means if you are looking at it from an honor mode perspective, maybe it's not the greatest, but if you're just looking to have some fun with a rogue, then Swashbuckler is great. Not to mention as far as multi-classing, because everything relevant to the subclass comes at level 4 or below, it's actually fantastic for multi-classing into, like a lot of the rogue options are. Up to the 9th slot, I've got the new Ranger subclass, which is the Swarmkeeper. This lets you pick between 3 different swarms of spirits to join you in combat, and you can change which type of swarm you want whenever you level up. Once per turn, when you hit an enemy, you can make your swarm do one of 3 things. The options are a legion of bees that deal piercing damage or push enemies around, or let you teleport up to 10 feet. A cloud of jellyfish that deal lightning damage or shock enemies, or let you teleport, or a flurry of moths that deal psychic damage or blind enemies, or let you teleport. You don't get much proper value for a number of levels after that, but then at level 11 you get Mighty Swarm, which increases your swarm's damage and adds extra effects to them. Specifically, all of the damage rolls from the swarms go up from 1d6 up to 1d8. The teleport option now gives 2 bonus AC for 1 turn after use, and for the bees, their knockback option now also knocks enemies prone. For the jellyfish, their shock option now also disarms the enemy, and for moths, their blind effect also applies slow to the enemy too, which means both blind and slow on one target from one attack, and this is quite strong, but you have to wait all the way until level 11 before you can get that and have it part of your kit, and this is the main power spike of the subclass, which makes it a bit tough overall. As far as multi-classing with this is actually quite good because a lot of the power comes to the 3rd level and just unlocking the swarm mechanic in general, and I would especially recommend it mixing it with something like Druid, as these swarms can be used well in wild shape, and that's a very good use of them in general. Moving on to 8th place, we have the College of Glamour for the Bard, and this one is essentially just the purest support subclass that you could ask for. Mantle of Inspiration lets you give 5 temporary hit points to 2 allies for some of your bardic inspiration, and if the ally is hit by a melee attack while they have this temporary HP, then the enemy will become charmed. The amount of allies that you can apply this effect to and the value of the temporary HP goes up as you level up, and is the main sort of class feature that changes for the subclass, with the only other main one being Mantle of Majesty Command. This is a bonus action command spell which is an automatic success on charmed enemies, which sounds like a great combo in theory with our previous class feature, but you can only use it once per long rest, which is a significant limiter for the main sort of synergy the subclass has. You can, however, recast it for 10 turns afterwards, and because it's a guaranteed success on charmed enemies, you can sort of work this around to take the most dangerous melee attacking enemy out of any fight that you use it, meaning that you get 1 fight per long rest where this effect is properly working and will just basically win you the fight. The biggest benefit that you will get from this subclass is the charm effect on melee hits against mantled allies, but that requires melee enemies in the first place. It requires your allies to take damage for the effect to apply, but it's something that you can set up before combat even begins to just absolutely ruin multiple enemy turns during each encounter. As for multi-classing, do you want access to charming enemies very consistently and easily? If yes, then a slight dip multi-class into this to get your initial Mantle of Inspiration effect is not a bad choice, but that's pretty much the only reason that you would want to. Moving on to 7th place, we've got the Death Domain, subclass for the Cleric. As the name implies, this is the heavily necromancy-themed Cleric with a large focus on dealing damage above all else, but you still get access to a lot of the utility that Clerics can get in general. The base first level class feature is Reaper. This makes it so any necromancy cantrips that can only hit one target can now hit a second target, and this may sound small, but this is essentially double damage with these cantrips when fighting multiple enemies, and especially in earlier sections of the game, this is quite a bit of damage potential, or of course when you are trying to conserve spell slots in lengthier combat sections as well. Your channel divinity for this subclass is Touch of Death, which lets you deal a bunch of extra necrotic damage when you hit an enemy with a melee attack. Then at level 6, your spells start to ignore necrotic resistance, which is great considering you have a high focus on necrotic damage in general, and there are of course necrotic resistant enemies in the game. At level 8, you get Divine Strike Necrotic, which lets you do an extra 1d8 of necrotic damage per turn whenever you make a melee attack, and all of that is just really solid for dealing damage. As far as multi-classing, the fact that you get so much goodness from the Reaper feature at level 1 and the Channel Divinity at level 2, you can get quite a lot of good for just a slight dip into those first 2 levels, and you can use that benefit on most other classes, so it is a solid multi-classer for sure. Down to 6th place, we have the Path of Giants Barbarian subclass. This one is just pure fun, really. Honestly, your rage also makes you increase in size, with this being the same effect as the Enlarge spell, so you also get an extra d4 of bonus damage while this is active. You get double your rage bonus on thrown attacks as well, and then at level 5 you can start kicking people around the battlefield as a bonus action with bonus success chance when hidden. At level 6 you gain elemental damage on your weapon and make it immediately reappear in your hand when thrown, which of course synergizes with the Giant's Rage increased thrown attack damage, and at level 10 you can throw a medium or smaller creature or object as a bonus action. So basically you'll be built to kick people off into environmental deaths, throw weapons at them, which is already a strong playstyle in the game, or literally just throwing people around because you can, or throwing random objects to use as throwing weapons for a bonus action as well. This one I find genuinely such a funny concept for a subclass. It's all about damage and knockbacks, and that's honestly also its weak point, as you are lacking any sort of real utility outside of that. When it comes to multi-classing, Path of the Giants has great synergy potential with anything that likes unarmed attacks, things like monks, or you could get a little bit funkier with it, go full into level 6, get Elemental Cleaver, and do a split with something like a Warlock to work around it as well. Then in 5th place, I've got the new Bladesinging subclass for the Wizard. This is, in concept, a simple battle mage, a wizard who also takes part in melee combat, except that the wizard, being the wizard, could never make anything simple. At level 2 you get Blade Song, and you only get 2 uses of this per long rest, with more being unlocked at higher levels. When active, Blade Song gives you bonus AC and a bonus to Constitution saving throws, both equal to your proficiency bonus, these being mostly just to try and help you keep concentration spells active while playing with a melee focus. You get bonus movement speed, and then you also gain advantage in acrobatics checks. While Blade Song is active, you will gain something called Blade Song charges when you take other actions. You get a Blade Song damage charge when casting a level 1 spell or higher. You get Blade Song healing charges by attacking with your weapon. Then when you are ready to end your Blade Song, you get the action Blade Song Climax. This spends all of your charges of both kinds in one big go. Spend a bonus action to use your Climax, and then you'll jump up, and when you land, you'll deal an AoE around you to enemies. You will deal 1d6 of force damage, plus an extra 1d6 per damage charge that you had built. Then for allies, you will heal them for 1d6, plus another 1d6 per healing charge that you had built. This has a lot of potential output, both negative and positive as a result, and is essentially the main part of this subclass. At level 6, you get extra attack, which helps build up healing charges for Blade Song even easier when you want them, and otherwise you mostly just get more and more Blade Song charges outside of level 10, where you gain the ability during Blade Song to spend your spell slots to reduce incoming damage by 5 per slot spent. Overall, this is a bit of a funky split. Blade Song itself is quite strong, but it has limited uses, but you also get some extra defenses, which are nice to counteract the squishiness of being a wizard. As far as multi-classing, this one is pretty awful for it, honestly. Blade Song is a great ability in a lot of ways, but at early levels you only get 2 charges per long rest, and you'd have to go all the way to level 5 to even get a 3rd charge, so it is a bit of an awkward one. Then in 4th place today, I've got the Oath of the Crown subclass for the Paladin. The class fantasy is awesome for this one, essentially an ultra tanky character that can also protect their allies. At level 1, you increase allies' attack rolls rituals. At level 3, you can taunt enemies and force them to attack you or have disadvantage if they attack anyone else. And you also get the ability to just shout to heal your allies with your inspiring voice. At higher levels, you get Divine Allegiance, and the actual in-game effect of this does not match the description. It claims that you can redirect the damage an ally takes into yourself if they are within 5 feet of you, but in reality what it does is let you use your reaction each turn to heal the ally for double your Paladin level, and in exchange for this, you take an equal amount of damage to what you healed. This one is a very simple subclass, honestly, but quite an effective one, being able to purposefully build a character to be very tanky and also make it so that character has the damage funneled into them purposefully, lets you do a lot more with the rest of your party. And you can get Spirit Guardians as well as an always prepared spell at level 9, which is extremely solid. When considering multi-classing into this subclass, the main things that you could gain are Righteous Clarity for the extra hit chance on allies at level 1, and at level 3 you could grab Champion Challenge for the taunt effect, and you can also get the Healing Shout. This isn't a terrible multi-class, mainly because you get the Channel Oath charge required for these just by picking a Paladin multi-class option in general, and you get to use these once per short rest, which isn't too bad. Next up in third place, I've got the Shadow Magic Sorcerer subclass. The biggest part of this subclass generally is that you can see in darkness, even magical darkness. It is superior dark vision, which means that you can use it even in the darkness spell, which you can get for yourself. You can then use this to create clouds where your enemies are blind, but you can see, and that in itself is incredibly strong in this game. At level 6, you get the Hound of Ill Omen, which makes a little shadowy dog friend that can entangle your enemies. It can apply omens to them, which applies debuffs to them, and if you hit the enemy with the elemental damage that matches the omen type, you will actually regain sorcery points, and the most fun part is when hit by a non-radiant damage melee attack, the dog will split off into bonus dogs and start multiplying if this continually happens, and who doesn't like having a pile of dogs? Then at level 11 you get Shadow Walk, which is a bonus action teleport into a non-visible area, and you get the Distant Spell meta magic effect without any sorcery points when you do this, which lets you cast from much further away. As far as multi-classing, sorcerers are strong for multi-classing in general, but Shadow Magic specifically gives you level 1 access to see in magical darkness, level 3 access to darkness as a spell, and this is a similar multi-class choice to going Warlock for the same effect, except that you get meta magic as well, because you're a Shadow Sorcerer. And you can even go full half-half with this, get level 6 Shadow Sorcerer for the Hound, and then you can do some funky stuff based around the omens too. In second place then, I've got the Druid's new subclass, the Circle of the Stars. This one is extremely cool. You get Starry Form as a wild shape replacement, and this lets you choose between 3 different constellations when you transform. Archer lets you cast Luminous Arrow as a bonus action while in the form for ranged radiant damage. Chalice lets you cast Chalice Healing as a bonus action to heal yourself or other targets within reach, or the final option is Dragon Constellation. This lets you cast Dazzling Breath as a bonus action to deal radiant damage in a cone shape in front of you, and on top of this, Dragon Starry Form makes it so any concentration check, if you roll 9 or lower, it will instead count as a 10. And while you can still fail the check by rolling a 10, this makes it very much harder to fail concentration checks in general, which is a very big solid bonus. All 3 of these are good in their own right, Dragon Starry Form even more so, but the big selling point of this subclass is the pure variety that you get, because you get to choose between these 3 forms, and the fact that you can choose which one you want based on the situation. At further levels, you get Cosmic Omen, which lets you increase or decrease attack rolls and saving throws that happen around you, as well as ability checks, and you can do this 3 times per long rest at level 6, up to 4 times at level 9. Then at level 10, the damage and healing of the spells that you get in each starry form is increased, with Dragon Form also gaining the ability to fly as an extra bonus. All in all, the variety of situational uses combined with the general level of power makes this subclass pretty exceptional. The class fantasy is absolutely incredible, and it provides something that is very unique compared to a lot of the other options in the game too. For multi-classing with this at level 2, you get these Starry Forms, which all give you powerful bonus actions, but again, going specifically Dragon Starry Form makes it very hard to drop concentration on spells, which is fantastic as an option for multi-classing. In first place then, we've got the Warlock with the Hexblade subclass. This gives you essentially innate Pact of the Blade when you get the subclass, giving your weapon magical damage, giving you proficiency with it, letting you use your charisma charisma for your attack modifier instead of strength or dexterity, which is of course important for a warlock, and then also a chance to apply Hexblade's curse on hit with that weapon. This gives extra damage rolls against a target and a bonus equal to the target's proficiency. As well, this reduces the target number to roll to have a critical hit against them, which is quite strong in itself too. As if that wasn't enough though, when a target dies while they've got the Hexblade's curse effect on them, you will regain health as a result. This can also be cast by itself as a bonus action once per short rest, and then at higher levels you also unlock the Accursed Spectre class feature, which lets you raise and create an ally from any corpses that had your Hexblade curse when they died, with various versions depending on the size of the target corpse. And then at level 10 you get a 50% chance to fully ignore damage that is done to you by targets that have the curse on them. And all of that is on top of having some pretty beefy spells on the expanded spell list for this subclass too. This is just an extremely well-rounded subclass, tons of value, great actual progression with when you are getting the various upgrades as well, and a lot of power potential in pretty much any combat scenario as well. As for multi-classing with this, all of the biggest impact stuff from the subclass comes at level 1, which is Hex Warrior, Bind Hex Weapon, and Hexblade's Curse, which makes this incredibly effective as a singular level multi-class option too, on top of just being extremely strong as a solo class. That just about does it for today, and everyone, the 12 new subclasses in Baldur's Gate 3 with patch 8 releasing today. What they are, what they get, what they do, and then just ranking them against each other based on my own thoughts and opinions of their kit as a whole. I hope you've all enjoyed this then, and let me know your own thoughts on any of this, as well as which subclass you are most excited to start a fresh playthrough with, or any multi-class options that you find particularly intriguing as well. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.